Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to give you a full course on how to send messages in the form of emails and SMS from your full stack applications. We also briefly touch on the topic of push notifications too. By the end of this video, you'll be able to send emails or SMS automatically to a user or even schedule them at a later date or even do so by topic. In fact, here's a full list of what we'll be covering today. First off, we'll start by understanding what targets are when it comes to messaging in software development. Next, we'll move on to looking at the SDK that we are going to use in this tutorial that will help us send messages from full stack applications to our users. We will first look at sending emails in Node.js, followed by sending SMS messages in Node.js, and finally use everything we have learned to build this full stack application. This application will allow users to sign up to our service and automatically receive an email and SMS with a thank you directly from our app. So what are we waiting for? Let's do it. Targets. When talking about targets, we are referring to devices, a mobile phone number, or an email that can receive a message. One user can have multiple targets. So for example, if I am the user, I can receive a message to my device, so like a push notification to my tablet. I can receive a message to a phone number in the form of an SMS, or I can receive a message to my email address in the form of an email. Makes sense, right? Let's see how this works. Here we are on AppWrite, the tool I will be using in order to help us send out messages. First off, I'm just going to create a project. So just go ahead and click Create Project and call this whatever you wish. I'm going to call it Messaging. This project ID will be important, but we will come to that when the time is right. So just hit Next and then select the region. I'm going to select the available region for me, which is Frankfurt, and I'm going to click Create. So there we go. That is being created for me. And once it is done, it should pop up like so. So once again, this is the project ID. And first off, what I'm going to do is just add a user. So under auth, here we go. I'm just going to create a user and I'm going to go ahead and put Anya. My email, I'm going to put anya@codewithanya.com. And this is essentially a target that is associated with my user. So here is one target. We're also going to add a phone number later, so that, as we know, is also a target. And we're going to leave password blank for now. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click Create. So here we are, there is my user. I'm going to go ahead and click Verify Account, as I'm pretty confident this one exists as it's mine, so I'm going to verify it. There we go, Anya has been verified. So great, and if we go back under auth, you will see Anya as a user. We can create multiple users, okay? So let's go ahead and create Bob. I'm going to put in an email address for Bob, and I'm going to leave the phone number and password blank again. So let's go ahead and do that and click Create. So there we go, we now have Bob. If we click on targets, you will see all the targets associated with Bob. So at the moment, the one target that exists is this one right here. It's the email address. Okay, so that was pretty easy. We have two users, okay, each with their specific targets. And then if we want to send out messages, I'm just going to select messaging, and this is super easy. We're just going to create a message, and then here 3 options will show up. I'm going to go ahead and select email for now. Great. So let's go ahead and create one. I'm going to go ahead and create a test email. So let's go ahead and put the subject of test email. In the message, I'm going to just put hi. And then I'm just going to go ahead and click Next. And here you will see I can select the targets that we discussed. So if I select plus and select targets, you will see my 2 users. Each of them only have one target associated with them. So Anya has the email target of anya@codewithanya.com, and Bob has one target, also an email of bob@test.com. So I can select this target, or I can select multiple targets. It is up to you. Okay? Now I'm going to stop here because there are some more steps that we need to take in order to send out an email. I just wanted to cover exactly what targets are first. So let's move on. That's how you add targets. Next, let's look at how we would collect this information in an app, thanks to the AppWrite SDK. In order to send messages from our full stack applications, we are going to have to use the SDK. So to do that, let's go ahead and just start a project. I'm going to choose to create just a simple React project. So let's go ahead and click new project. I am using WebStorm, so this process for me is super easy. I just have to click React. And then I'm just going to call this AppWrite messaging. Okay, and I'm essentially going to use this command in order to spin up a React app quickly for me. Now, some of you might know that Create React App was recently deprecated. This is outside the scope of this tutorial, but if you want, please go ahead and use Vite instead. So let's go ahead and click Create. For those of you who are not using WebStorm, you can, of course, do this in whatever code editor you wish. You can simply go ahead and go to whatever directory you like to work in. So for me, it would be WebStorm projects, and use the command npx create react app, and then you can call this AppWrite messaging, just like me as well, and hit enter. Of course, I'm not going to do it this way because I'm doing it this way, so I'm just going to go ahead and click create. And now all those wonderful files and all the configuration I need will be spun up for me thanks to the npx create react app command. Okay, great. So once that's done its thing, you should see all the necessary files, like I said, show up in here. So I'm just going to minimize that. And I'm actually just going to go ahead and delete a bunch of stuff from here, because all we're going to do is just keep the app.js file, the index.js file, and the index.css file for now. So just go ahead and delete these three. We're really keeping this super simple for tutorial purposes. So let's get rid of this app.test.js file as well, and the app.css file. So those should be the only files that are in your source directory: app.js, index.css, and index.js. So in your index.js, I'm just going to delete that. We are not importing Web Vitals. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger for you. We're importing the app, we're importing the CSS file, and then there we go. So that is all you have in your index.js file. Your index.css file I'm going to keep empty, and the app.js file, well, we're just going to go ahead and delete everything in here like so. Let's just go ahead and make this bigger. Let's delete the logo import. Let's also delete the app CSS import, and then we'll just have the const app. I prefer function expressions, but it's totally up to you, whatever you prefer. And then we're just going to return a div with the class name app. Okay? So this is all the code you should have in your app.js file. Once more, this is all the code you should have in your index.js file, and this is everything you should have in your index.css file, which is nothing. So those are our three files. Let's go ahead and create a backend. So on the same level as the README, I'm just going to create a new file. I'm going to call it server.js. Okay, this is essentially our backend. And we are going to essentially just import the Node AppWrite SDK and then set up our client. So let's do it. So first off, we're going to essentially import the package. So npm I, making sure you are in the AppWrite messaging project, Node AppWrite. So just like that, and hit enter. So that is going to do its thing, and in the package JSON, you should see that dependency show up along with the version that we are using today. So if you're watching this in the future, I would strongly suggest going back to this version so that everything works as it should as you are watching it in this tutorial. So for example, if it's on 14, just go ahead and change it to 13 and do npm I run again. Okay, great. And that way we should all be at the same spot. That goes for all the dependencies you see right here. Okay, wonderful. So we have this installed. I'm just going to go ahead and essentially, let's just minimize this. I'm going to get rid of these for now and focus on the server.js file. So first off, let's define our SDK. I'm going to do require, and then we're just going to use Node AppWrite. So all of that package's wonderfulness will now be stored under the const SDK. And great. Now, in order to start our client, or in order to essentially connect to our AppWrite project, I'm going to have to define a client. So I'm going to use new SDK client, open this up, call that, and then do some chaining. So essentially, I need to do set endpoint. So I'm just going to put that down here. And here, we're going to put our API endpoint. So your API endpoint. We're also going to set project, and you guessed it, our project ID is going to go here. So your project ID, and then we're going to do set key. Okay, and this is going to be your secret API key. So great, let's go back in here, and I'm just going to go back to personal projects messaging. And I'm going to copy this because this is the project ID. So let's just go ahead, and for now we can just paste that in here like so. Let's also go back here, and we're going to have to get some more things. So let's go ahead, and under settings, we can get our API endpoint. So just copy that right here. Let's paste it in like so. And finally, let's set our key. So let's go back here once more. Let's view our API keys. Let's get our API key here. I'm just going to call it demo. I'm going to select never expires for the sake of this tutorial. Let's click next. I'm just going to select all for now and click create. So that's going to allow me access to all of these services. Great. So here is my API key. Please keep yours safe. I'm of course going to deactivate this after the tutorial. Just copy it, and then back in your project, just paste it like so. Okay? And there we go. So that's really all we need to do in order to connect to our projects on AppWrite. Okay, we are essentially set up. Okay, let's get to understanding how to send an email. Now it's time to actually test out sending an email from our backend. So I'm going to do this in a function. Let's define the function. So const send email is what I'm going to call it. Maybe let's just minimize that for now. It's going to be an async function. So here we go. And we're going to have to get messaging from the SDK. I'm going to define the const messaging up here, and we're going to use the SDK, and we're going to get messaging from it. So the method of messaging, and just pass through the client that we define up here in order to connect. So there we go, we have done it. This means that in here, I can do await messaging. So the const we defined up here that is connected to our projects, and I could get create email. So the method of create email from it. And to use it, well, we just have to pass through a few things. We're going to have to pass through an ID. We can essentially use whatever ID we wish. So we're going to put that here. We're then also going to have a subject. So we're going to go here. In fact, maybe let's just write that down. So the message ID goes here. We're also then going to have a subject here. Next, we're also going to have the content as a string. So content is going to go here essentially. And then there's some optional things as well. So we can have our, I'm just going to put a comma here. We'll have an array, and this is going to hold any topics that we want to target. That is optional, so I'm going to put optional there. We haven't set any topics in the scope of this tutorial, but just know that you can email users by topics that you have segregated on the app. Then we're also going to pass through the user IDs of the users that we want to message. So users is also optional, okay, but I'm going to use that, so hence I have put it there. So let's define the response of this as something. I'm going to just call it message, and then let's just console log out the message, right? So I'm just going to do these manually for now. The message ID, I'm just going to put in a randomly generated UUID. So this is just my randomly generated one that I have made up. Let's put a subject. I'm going to put welcome, and then let's put hi. Okay, and as the users that we want to target, well, we're going to have to go back in here, and under auth, I'm going to select this user, and I just need my user ID, which is this one, so I'm going to copy it. And in here, I'm just going to paste it in like so as a string. Great. So by writing this code, I'm essentially wanting to message the user Anya, who has the target of this email address, okay, Anya, a code with Anya, that's what I want to email. And I want to email Anya with the subject email of welcome and the content of hi. This message, once created, will also have an ID associated with it, which I have typed in manually. Okay? So that is step one. Step two is actually adding a provider that we're going to use to send this email. So back in here under messaging, I'm going to select providers, and then I'm going to create a provider for the email option, and I'm going to choose to select SendGrid. So I'm just going to call this SendGrid. This is the provider that I am choosing to use for this tutorial. And then we just need to enter an API key for our SendGrid account. So let's just head over to SendGrid just like so. I'm going to sign in because I already have an account. You can sign up completely for free. So here is the SendGrid dashboard. This is going to be super easy. All you have to do is scroll down here under settings and get your API key. I'm just going to create a new API key that has full access. I'm just going to call this messaging, just like so, create and view. And I'm just going to copy this, okay, so just copy your one and paste it in here like so. Now the sender email, I'm also just going to put Anya at code with anya.com. That's also the email we use to sign up to SendGrid. So copy that as the sender email and the reply to email. I'm going to put the name here as well as Anya and click update. So now that has been done, we have just added a provider. So now let's go back to messaging. So great, we are nearly done. We can nearly create a message. One thing we also need to do is just go back to the dashboard on SendGrid and add a authenticated sender. So let's start that. And then under the single sender verification, I'm going to verify a single sender, and I'm going to create a new one. So I'm going to do from Anya email address, anya@codewithanya.com, reply to Anya. Company address, we're going to put code with Anya. City, I'm going to put Dubai, and then here. And then country, we're going to put United Arab Emirates. And we can have a nickname here too. Let's put code with Anya. Okay? And make sure that is an email address as well. So now let's click create. Great. We're of course going to have to verify that so that this is verified. So please check your email to do so. Okay? Once you have checked your email and clicked on the relevant link and refreshed this page, this should show up as verified. And we are ready to go. So now that we've added that, let's create our first message. I'm going to test it out from here before we do it in our apps. So click create message, select email, and then let's go. This is a test, and click here in order to fill out the message with hello. And let's hit next. So now let's add those targets. I'm going to select a target. I'm simply just going to select my one. So I'm going to email anya@codewithanya.com. Let's add that target, hit next. I'm going to send this immediately and hit send. You can, of course, schedule this out, but for now, I'm just going to choose to send this immediately. So just be aware that that is an option too. So by clicking send here, we acknowledge that this is irreversible. We're going to click send like so. And then here we are. This has now been sent. So if you now check your email, you will see a message with the subject of this is a test. It's sent via SendGrid, but from the anya@codewithanya.kubo account, and it just says hello. Okay, this might have gone to your spam, so please check that didn't happen. Great, we have just tested that works, so we are now done here. Let's do it via the app next. So in here, you will also get all your previous messages along with the message ID. Let's go back to doing it in here. So great. I think all I'm going to do, let's test this out. We have a message ID, like I said, that we wrote ourselves. The user we have picked out as Anya. The subject is going to be welcome. The content is going to be hi. So I'm just literally going to call that function here. And then let's run this script. So I'm simply just going to, in my terminal, do node server JS in order to run that script and hit enter. And great. So that is processing. And now let's check again in our emails. And wonderful, we get a message with the subject of welcome and the content of hi. This time this was sent from our projects, okay, that we are building. And if you want to see the history, just go ahead and go back to Upright and hit refresh. And you will see that message. Of course, this is the message ID that we gave, 4632. You will see that here as well, 4632. So that is one that we added ourselves. Amazing. So we have done this, we've tested it. Let's move on. I'm happy with this. Okay, now that we understand how to send an email, let's get to sending an SMS. Okay, so back in Upright under messaging, we're going to set up another provider. So under providers, this time we're going to create a provider, this time for SMS, and we're going to choose Twilio. So select Twilio and simply just name this Twilio like I am doing right now and hit next. So for this, we of course are going to have to sign into Twilio. So here we are on Twilio. I'm just going to log into my account. And then here, I'm just going to select the email address that I have associated with Twilio. So just like that and hit continue. Okay, great. So here we are on the Twilio dashboard. So first off, we need to get the SID, auth token, and sender number. So if we go down here, here we have the account SID, just copy that. I'm just going to paste it in like so. The auth token is here, so I'm just going to copy this one too. And then I'm just going to paste it in like that. The sender number, here is my Twilio number that I'm going to be using. So I'm just going to copy that one and paste it in like so. If you don't have a Twilio number, it is easy to get one for free. You'll just have to go through the relevant steps in order to do so. For the purpose of this demo, I'm also going to create a virtual number, okay, so that we can send to it as a test. So here under messaging, we're going to choose try it out, send an SMS, and all you're going to do is save this as your virtual Twilio phone number, but we don't need it right now. For now, let's go back in here. I'm going to create this provider. So here we go, that has now been created. And then let's go back to messaging. Okay, so let's test this out. First off, however, under auth and under the user Anya, I'm just going to add in that phone number here. So for example, I'm just going to put in my virtual phone number. So let's select that one and paste it in like so. And just hit update. Okay, so that phone number has been now added for the user Anya. You can put your own. Okay, I'm just putting in a virtual one for demo purposes. And under messaging now, let's try it out. So let's create a new message. This time it's going to be an SMS. I'm going to put this is a test and hit next. And then I'm going to select the targets. Once again, I'm going to select this target for Anya because the other user does not have a mobile phone. I'm going to click add and hit next. And I'm going to also send this immediately. So hit send and there we go. So now you will see if that has worked or not. This has indeed been sent, so that is good. Everything is working as it should. Great. So all of these has now been sent. Now let's try it from our apps. So once again, let's go back to WebStorm. I'm going to minimize this for now. This time, so I'm just going to delete that. Let's create a new function. This one I'm going to call send SMS. So const send SMS equals async. So just like that, as it's an async function, I'm going to also define message. So const message just like so. I'm going to put await messaging, and then I'm going to use create SMS from it. So there we go. The message, well, this also takes an ID, so we're going to put in a message ID here. So let's just go ahead and write message ID just like that. Then we're going to have the content of what we want to send. So let's go ahead and once again put content. Finally, we're going to have the topics. So in fact, let's just copy that because we can send it via topic. And then we're also going to have the users, which is optional as well. I'm choosing to send it to the user Anya, and this is the user ID associated with my user called Anya. As the content, I'm going to put, once again, this is a test. And as the message ID, well, we can just, again, just create a new one. So I'm just going to hard code this one for now. So now let's try it out. I'm simply going to grab this and call it, and then let's run this script. So once again, I'm just going to run this. Let's also just console log message, just so we can see what is going on under the hood. So node, let's run server.js and hit enter. And there we go. So that has worked. You should receive a message to your mobile phones or your virtual number if you have chosen to do what I did. If you want to see this has worked and you are using a virtual phone number like I have, this is easy. All you have to do is go to message logs and then find the phone number that you are sending from. And then these are recent messages sent from my Twilio number. So here we go. And you will see that has been delivered. Okay, you even get the timestamp, and this timestamp is correct for me right now. Great, so that has worked. Let's move on. Okay, and now that we understand how to send an SMS, let's get to understanding push notifications. Push notifications are messages that appear on a mobile device or computer from an app or website. They serve various purposes such as alerts, promotions, reminders, and more. They are essential for delivering real-time updates and alerts, enhancing the overall user experience. Push notifications can also be used to increase engagement and retention, and even for security purposes. Enabling push notifications for your app using AppWrite is very similar to how we enabled emails and SMS notifications. The only thing that is a bit different is adding the provider. Here's the code you'll need in order to create a push notification in your Node.js project. Let's move on to discussing setting up the messaging provider. Push notifications must be sent through third-party providers like Apple Push Notification Service and Firebase Cloud Messaging. The push notification APIs for Apple and Android devices can only be accessed through these services. You must configure these services before you can send your first push notification. You can do so by following these steps here. These third-party providers may require upfront costs and therefore are outside the scope of this tutorial. However, if you are an app developer and would like to give it a go, here is the documentation you would need to add them as a target to users. Okay, great! Now that we have covered all the necessary topics, let's get to building an app with what we have learned so far. We are going to build a form that sends an automatic thank you message via email and SMS. So let's do it. Okay, so it's now time to come to the project part. So we've already learned how to essentially send SMSs and emails from our backend. Let's actually build out a form that takes this information and sends an SMS and email automatically. So let's do it. So for this, let's head over first. Let's build out our front end. So this is going to be a super simple front end. Okay, this is not really about the front end, right? We're going to be wanting to see this works with the back end. So I'm just going to create a really simple form. So this div, let's change this to be auth modal. Let's pretend it's some kind of authentication modal. I'm going to also create a div and just put in a text symbol like so. Let's give this the class name of close icon, just like that. Now the H2 element that I'm going to put here, I'm going to put sign up just like that. And as a P element here, I'm just going to put in some text that says, by signing up, you agree to our terms and conditions. Learn about our privacy policy before clicking submit. Okay? And then we're also going to have the form just like so. So on the form on submit, I'm going to put register user. Okay, that is a function that we are going to call later. So maybe let's define that up here, const register user. I'm just going to make it empty for now, but there we have our function. And in our form, well, we're going to have a few inputs. So one input is going to be just like that. And this is going to take our email. So I'm going to give it the type of email. I'm also going to give it the ID of email. Let's also give this the name of email. As a placeholder, I'm going to put email, so people know to put their email. And then we're going to have an on change. So whenever this changes, we want to update something, I'm going to put it in a function called update user so that we can update the user as a whole. So update user. So just like that. Once again, I'm just going to make this an empty function for now. So on change, do that. And as the value of this, well, because we also would like to see it, we're going to save the user to state. So the user is going to be saved to state. And if it exists, I'm going to get the email property from it. So I'll show you that in a bit as well. So that is what one input's going to look like. I'm in fact just going to copy and paste this for the next one. This time, the type of this is going to be the telephone number. The ID is going to be tel. Let's put the name of this as the telephone number 2. Placeholder, I'm just going to type out phone number so people know that the phone number goes here. And on change, we're again just going to use the same function and check the user object has a tel property. This should be on submit. That's very important. And last input is just going to be the submit input. So we're just going to literally put the input with the type of submit. And I'm going to style this up a little bit. I'm going to give this the class name of form button, just like that. So there we go. And then we can also have some fun things like some terms and conditions if you like. So I'm going to put the label for this here. And then as the input, this is kind of just for visual purposes. I'm not really going to use this. So you don't have to put this, but I think it looks quite good. And you can do it if you like. So this is going to have the type of check box. I won't bother giving it a name and an ID as we are not really using it, but I'll leave this as required just to check that people have read the terms and conditions. So I agree to the terms and conditions is the text that I'm also going to put in here. Great. Now, I just want to put a few more things in here. So after the form has finished, I'm also going to put just a line essentially. The H2 element that's going to say download the app. So this is again just extra visuals for you. And I'm going to add a div that's essentially going to have the class name of link container because it's going to hold 2 links. So let's put link container. And in here, I'm going to have 2 links. You guessed it. So A is going to be for the link. The href of this is going to be essentially to the Google Play Store. So we're pretending that this app also exists on the Google Play Store. And we're just going to have an image here. So image, just like that. Source. And then we're going to put the Google Play logo, which we are yet to put in here. And some alternative text for the visually impaired. So I'm just going to put Google Play icon. Okay. Next, I'm just going to copy this link once more, and let's create the same one, this time, however, for the Apple Store. So I'm just going to place this to www.apple.com/store, and let's change this to the App Store logo instead, and change this alternative text to Apple Store icon. Great. So now let's import those 2 images, and we are done with all the JSX for now. So let's do it. So I'm going to copy this, and then up here, I'm going to import Google Play logo from, and of course we need to put in some images. So I'm just going to go here, and in the source directory, I'm going to create a new directory called images like so. And then I'm just going to drag these 3 in. So just like that. And hit refactor. So just add those in like that. Okay, so there they are. So now I can essentially go to images and get the path to the Google Play download icon. So please feel free to take mine from the code in the video description below, or feel free to put in your own. Great. Let's do the same for the Apple one. So App Store logo from, and then we're going to have images and App Store download.png. Cool. Now I'm going to also import use state as we are here, as we are going to have to use state in order to save the state of the user to this component. So let's import that from the package React. And here, as I mentioned, we're just going to define the user and use set user in order to change that user by using use state. And we're going to start off with the state being null. Okay, great. Now the function to update the user, I'm just going to move that up here because we're going to essentially set the user. So we're going to change the user. At the moment, the user is null, but each time we interact with the form, we're going to change that. So we're going to essentially open up the object because we want this to be an object. We're going to spill out whatever the old user is, and then we're going to add in, so we're spilling out whatever's in there. Obviously at the moment it's nothing. We're going to use E here because we're going to use the E target name to create a property. So E target name, and then whatever the E target value is going to be the value for that property. If this doesn't make sense, I'm just going to show you what this looks like now. So now let's console log the user and keep in mind the name of this input and the name of this input and the fact that we are also showing the value. So now let's run this, right? So we need to run this app. I'm also, however, going to just change some of the scripts on the package JSON. So this is to start our front end. So I'm going to do start front end, and I'm also going to write a script to start our back end. So on a new line, I'm going to do start back end just like that. And then do no daemon to listen out for constant changes on the server.js file. Okay, so now I'm just going to import the package nodemon to listen out for constant changes as opposed to node that we used before. And now I'm going to start the backend. So I'm going to do npm run start backend. So this should start our backend, and then in another tab, I'm going to do npm run start frontend, npm run start frontend. Okay, so this will spin up our app on localhost 3000 here, and then this is what my app looks like at the moment. It doesn't look great. However, if I inspect it, you should see that it's all working. Okay. So amazing. So now essentially in the email, so the input with the name email, I can start writing and the name will show up here and the value will show up here. And for the phone number, it's the same thing. We get the name of that input and the value showing up here, and it's all stored under one object, which we have defined as the user, right? Because we are console logging out the user here. Great. So this is looking good. Now, once we have collected all that user data, we need to then send it over to our backend, right? So const register user is going to help us do this. So this is going to be an async function. We're also going to have to pass through the event so that we prevent the form from reloading. So to do that, I'm going to do prevent default. So there we go. And I'm going to do try and catch. So try and catch. I'm going to catch any errors, so catch error, console error, error, just like that. And what we're going to try to do is use const options equal. We're going to do the method of post. The body is going to be the user because we're going to send over the user, but we need to pass it through JSON stringify. So there we go, the user. And we're also going to pass through headers. So headers, we're going to do content type and application JSON. Okay, wonderful. So those are our options that we're going to pass through, and then we're going to send this over and get a response. So we're going to send this over to an endpoint. I'm going to define it now of HTTP localhost, and then we're going to define our backend soon. I'm going to say it's going to be in port 8000, and we're going to make a endpoint called register, to which we're going to send over all of our options. So this whole object right here. Okay, and once we get the response back, we're going to save it under the const data, so await response JSON, and then we're just going to console log that data so we can see it. Okay, great. So that is really it. That is my whole register user function right there. Let's move on. So now let's start our port and define our register endpoint. So back on the server, let's do so up here. So I'm just going to define the port. Const port is going to be 8000. Const express we're going to need, so we're going to require the package express. We're then going to get express and release all of its wonderfulness and save it under the const app. We're then going to use a package called UUID4, which is going to help us generate unique identifiers. So require UUID4. We're then going to also need cause to get rid of any pesky cause messages. So require the package cause. And then we're going to do app use cause and call it, okay? And then we're also going to do app use express JSON, so we can pass JSON from our front end to our back end. Wonderful. So let's just put that with those. So let's go ahead and import all of those packages now. So in a new tab, I'm just going to do npm I express UUID4 cause and hit enter. Making sure you are in the AppWrite messaging project. So great, that is now done. Now that we have all of our inputs here, I'm going to write the endpoint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write under the client right here and under the messaging app post, as it's a post method, and we're going to post to the endpoint register. Just like that. It's going to be an async function. We're going to pass through the request and the response. And then I'm going to try something and catch any errors. So try catch error console error, the error. And just like we defined messaging, we're going to define users because we're going to register a completely new user. So we're going to do new SDK users this time and pass through the client. So now we can essentially work with this. First off, however, from the request body that I'm sending over from the front end, so with the request body, I did attach the whole user object, so I can get it here. So const user, there we go. We are getting it from the request body. And I am going to essentially use await, and from the users this time, I'm going to get the method of create. Okay, because we're going to create a new user. So just like we did manually in AppWrite, this time this one's going to need an ID. It's also going to need an email, which we are sending over from the front end. So we are sending the user over from the front end, and one of the properties it has is the email, and the other property it has is the telephone number, right? Because in our form, we ask for the email and the telephone number. So in order to create a user, AppWrite does need a unique user ID, so we are yet to write that. It does need an email. The email actually is optional, so I'll put optional. And the telephone number, as you saw, is also optional. So telephone, this is also optional. There is other things you can add here. These are just the ones that I am using for the tutorial. Okay, so the ID, well, we can generate a unique identifier. So ID, thanks to the UUID4 package. So I'm just going to call that, and that will generate a unique identifier similar to the ones I've been manually typing out. And then I'm just going to console log the results so we can see it. Okay, so great. Now, if a result does exist, well, then we want to send an email and SMS. So if result exists, I'm going to use the function I wrote to send email to pass through the result, and I'm going to do the send for send SMS. SMS, making sure to spell it exactly the same as I did here. And we're going to pass through the results. So just like that. Great. So wonderful. This means, of course, I need to pass through the result into here and into here. Okay. So we don't need to comment this one out here anymore. I'm just going to get rid of that console log and get rid of that console log so we can look at both of these together. Now, the message ID, well, once again, we don't really need that. I'm just going to get that from the UUID4 package. So this will now be unique and generated each time. And let's do the same for send SMS. So let's replace that. It'll be a different identifier each time. The message that we want to send, well, I think the message should be welcome still. However, we can make it personal, right? So one of the things that is going to come back with the result is the email, okay? So I'm going to show you all of this in a bit. The result comes with a property called email. I'm going to save that under the const email, just like so that we can now use it in here. Email just like that. So it will say welcome and whatever email you use to sign up. And then we're going to have a message, something like thank you for signing up to our email community, right? So that's what we're going to have as the text here. No backticks, just this one has backticks because this is some code that we want to put in. The user ID, well, this is also going to come from the result, okay? But it's a different property. It's a more difficult one that we need to get. So const user ID equals the result. So whatever comes back from the response from creating the user has a ID that we need to grab like this, okay? So once we have that user ID, we can just pass it through like that. So whichever user we created up here is resulting with a unique identifier, which is a user ID. And if we want to message them, we have to pass that through into here. Wonderful. So that's really it. Now for the SMS, well, we're going to do the same thing. We're passing through the result. We need to generate a unique identifier to put in here. That is fine. The user ID, once again, we're going to get that from the result. We're going to look into it and look for the ID and get its value. And actually, I think that's it. So for the content, again, maybe we can put thank you so much for signing up. Welcome to our SMS community this time. So there we go. And the user ID will just stick in here. Great. So that's really it. Make sure that is a string, and that looks good to me. Wonderful. So let's test it out, right? So I think this is looking good. I'm just going to console log that result so you see what I'm passing through into send email and send SMS. But other than that, I'm happy with this. One last thing I'm going to do is just listen out to this app. So I'm just going to put app listen to listen out for port. And I'm just going to console log out these messages again so we can see what is going on. So console log message and console log message here. So let's give it a go. So let's try this out. I'm going to put Anya at freecodecamp.org as the phone number. I'm just going to put a phone number that I have. I'm going to click to agree terms and conditions and hit submit. So now if we look in here and refresh under our auth, so I'm just going to refresh that. Ta-da! You will see there is Anya at freecodecamp.org that has worked, and we should have also received an SMS to our phones or whatever phone number we put in there, and an email to this email address. Great. Hopefully that has worked for you. It has for me. If you go to messaging, you will see that that email was sent as well. So it was sent to Anya at FreeCodeCamp. Here is the message, and here was the subject, welcome, Anya at freecodecamp.org. Okay? Wonderful. So I'm really happy with this. The last thing to do is just style this app up. So let's do it. So I'm just going to go back here. I think maybe we should have welcome after this, so just like so. And yeah, let's get to styling this up. So on the index CSS, I'm just going to do some speed styling for you for those who are interested, or if you're not, just feel free to add your own styling. Please don't forget to, style this up however you want, and don't forget to share it with me at the end. Okay? Great. So as the font for everything, I'm going to put font family, and I'm going to do Redux Pro, which is a Google font that I have got. So Redux Pro, and as a backup, I'm just going to put sans serif, which does mean I need to import this URL in order to get that font from Google Fonts. So here is the full URL, just like that. So that is my font family. As the body of the app, I'm going to put padding as 0. I'm going to put margin as 0.2. The background image I'm going to use is the one that we imported previously. So it is going to be a URL, and then I'm going to go into images, and then I'm going to just get purple theme background. I'm going to make the background size cover. So just like so, and as the height, I'm going to do 100 viewport height. Text align is going to be center, and then I'm going to use display flex, initialize flex box, so we can center everything from left to right, and also center everything from top to bottom, thanks to the height we added here as well. Great. So as the H2 element, I'm going to do text transform uppercase to make everything uppercase. I'm going to do font style this time. So font style italic. The P element, well, I'm just going to do font size 15 pixels, just like so. The auth modal, well, I'm just going to do background color, RGB 255, 255, 255. The width of this is going to be 360 pixels. Border radius, I'm going to choose to do 10 pixels. The padding of this is going to be 40 pixels. The box shadow, I've already picked this out, is going to be RGB black, and then 0.05 opacity. 0 x-axis 6 pixels, y-axis 24 pixels blur, and then we're also going to do RGBA. So this one should also be RGBA. Black once more, and 0.08. Okay, so there we go. And then we're going to do 0.001 pixel. Okay, so that is my box shadow. Maybe I'll make it bigger for you. Next, we'll move on to the actual form in the auth modal. So if a form exists only in the auth modal, what I'm going to do is do display flex direction column. And once again, in the auth modal, any input that exists, I'm going to do padding 8 pixels, margin 8 pixels, font size, I'm going to do 17 pixels. And then once again, any form button, so anything with a class name or form button that exists in the auth modal, I'm going to make the font of this white, so make it the color of white. I'm going to do text transform uppercase, font size, I'm going to do 15 pixels. I'm also going to do padding of 12 pixels on the top and bottom, 30 pixels on the left and right. Border radius is going to be 30 pixels. Margin is going to be 6 pixels. border is going to be RGB 255, 255, 255, solid 2 pixels, background I'm going to put as a linear gradient, 45 degrees, RGB 185. So colors I've previously picked out, 48254, RGB 255 64153. Okay, so that is my background color, those two nice purpley pinks. And then the form button, if you hover over it, will have some styling for that too. I'm going to have the color of text is going to be this off black that I have picked out. We're also going to do a border of RGB 484848. We'll do solid 2 pixels. Okay, great. And then we're going to also have the orthomodal link container, just like that. We'll initialize Flexbox so that we can use justify content space between all the children. Okay, nearly there. We're also going to check in the auth modal for anything with the class name of link container and any image that lives inside of it. I'm just going to set the width of both of them to be 170 pixels and then margin of each to be 5 pixels. So just like that. And then we'll grab the close icon as well. So close icon, we'll make it go right. So float right, just like that. And finally, let's check this out to see what this looks like. And there we go. So this is looking really, really cool. I'm so happy with this. I love it. Before moving on, I would just like to recommend that you use the await keyword here. So just like that, in order for that to run smoother, and just hide your secret variables in a env file. If you want to share this project even on GitHub, you want to keep these safe, so make sure you do that for me before adding it to GitHub or sharing it or anything like that. Okay, great. Thanks so much for coding with me. I hope this lesson was useful, and I hope to see you again on my channel soon.